Welcome to the BigMx Radio podcast, brought to you by Fox Racing Canada. You guys know the drill. Head to the website, memorize a catalog, and then head on to your local dealer and get fitted and protected by Fox Racing Canada. I am your host, Brad Gebhart, but with me on the line, a guy who has been way too quiet for way too long. He's got way too many stories, so I had to call him up from Fly Racing. It's Weston Peick. Weston, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well, man. I am stoked to have you on. The working man's superhero when it came to Supercross, a guy who so many people like myself could really relate to. You were a rough and tumble racer for a long time, took no shit, and really performed at maybe a level that I think maybe even you surprised yourself in the end of what you were able to get to. But we'll get to the whole story at some point during this interview. But how are you doing nowadays? I see you're wearing the Fly shirt. Looks like you're in a hotel, so you're still doing some jet setting, doing some ride days and stuff like that, and still staying busy. How's Weston Peick here in 2023?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. Life's been moving forward since injury. Obviously, it's been 4 years almost, but same thing, man. Just I switched roles, racing mainly, but now just trying to ride. But there's so much damn rain, you can't even ride. I've ridden twice in 2 weeks now, but so just here for the Supercross series, kind of bouncing around, doing my thing with Fly, and just staying busy, man. Being a brand ambassador and helping them as much as I can with all the different brands and riding dirt bikes, trying to.
Fair enough. Well, you know what? Our friends over at Supercross decided not to shuffle the deck as far as rebranding each series. So I don't know if you know, but this round coming up, it may only be the second race of 2023, but it's actually round 3. It's being labeled that as by the media and Supercross. So you're gonna have to do your best impression of someone who acknowledges that this is in fact round 3, coming up in San Diego, a facility that I think you actually no, I don't think you ever raced here. You would have raced at Qualcomm as well as Petco Park. This would be a new venue for you. But just talk about reconnecting with the fans when you go to these events. People who they've only ever been to a Supercross race. They sit in the stands. They're almost as far away, like they're a football field away from you at all times, unless they get into the autograph line. Being able to shake the hands and actually meet some of these people who love Fly. They looked up to you as a pro and probably still do to this day. What's that like, and how are the interactions?
It's awesome, and that's kind of like my role of why I didn't want to kind of just completely disappear out of the sport, was because of just the diehard fans that I had and in the sport. So that's why I kind of rolled into doing these events with Fly Racing, and it's just that it gives people a different perspective where they can actually have a conversation if they want to. Like I'm in the pits all day long with our Fly activation setup. So like we have a full and semi container, with our product. So I'll be bouncing around there pretty much all day is kind of what I do, and just interacting with fans, people, all of our reps and stuff, dealers that show up, and it's pretty much just I'm just there as an image. Like I said, I've been with Fly for 13 years now, so it's me as much as I can, and just hang out with people and give them what they want, because most people don't get a chance to talk to riders, because when we're racing, it's so we're here, we're there, we don't have time to really sit and chat and BS with people, where it's like we're now doing this role. I can actually have a conversation with somebody longer than 2 seconds and then feel like a dick because I'm like, hey, I gotta go, I don't have time for this, I gotta race, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. So it's kind of cool to be able to get into that situation and be able to actually interact with people that just want to actually have a conversation, and not be like 2 seconds of conversation and then gone. So it's kind of cool to have that accessibility.
Definitely. And your career ascended along with Fly. I feel like they were in step. Like Obviously, Fly came onto the scene early 2000s. First guy to wear the helmet was Tim Ferry. And then I think the first guy to be head to toe, minus the helmet, because he wore the shark helmet, was David Villemin back in 2003 or 2004. He had that all blue stuff, and he had all the all white stuff as well. That was a pretty sweet look. But talk about like when Fly really arrived on scene and was seen on a regular basis in the main events, I think of yourself and I think of Trey Kennard, and the two of you were very like sort of like synonymous with the brand. I'm sure there's some people that you meet at these events that like they meet you and they get to sort of like tell you about how they sort of fell in love with the brand, and that's kind of cool.
No, it is. It's awesome. I mean, like I said, to be able to grow with a brand like Fly, and I came on in 09, and even in 2009, Max Steffens is who I was my guy at the time, and he's the one that got me hooked up and set up with Fly from then on out. But it's just crazy, to see a brand like that, go from mediocre brand products, these issues, those issues. And then over my time from 09, we made such big strides in product and quality and fit. And not only that, is you say Kennard, but I want to say Andrew Short was in it before I was.
Yeah, Shorty too.
Shorty was, I think he was 08, but he was like the first one to be, he was before Kennard, I believe. Because I know Kennard came on later.
Right, because he was on FC, because he was on Fox until he turned pro, like turned into the 450 class in I think 2010, 11.
Because I think Shorty was the first to get
a
Fly gear, if I'm correct. Modern is not David Villemin is.
Yes. Well, the first championship. Yeah, first championship in Fly would have been Brandon Jessamine, and there's a name from the past. And then the next champion would have been J-Law in 2009 in the 08 East Coast Supercross, or East or West. I can't remember. I think it was West Coast Supercross. Either way, Fly, like it's really cool that they still embrace you, and obviously you working with Damon Bradshaw. Like, do you just kind of pinch yourself every once in a while? Like, yeah, like this is the guy that I do these events with, is like the one of the maybe the most beloved and like fan favorite rider of the last 40 years. Damon Bradshaw is your coworker.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I mean, it's funny because we're both hard asses. Like we both don't take shit at all, and like when we get into it, we're just like, fucker, no one's gonna win here. So it's cool to have him on and have his knowledge, and he's cool to be around. We jive and we get along well, which works because we're doing 15 events a year plus together. So it's like it's a good match. We bullshit together, we ride good, we're on the same page. So it's cool to have him a part of the program.
Absolutely. And you can swear if you absolutely need to. Lord knows I grew up in a hockey dressing room, so I fucking swear as much as anybody else does. So just let her fly, man. Like your ascension to where you eventually ended up, which was a podium contender week after week at the Supercross level, didn't really start that way. Your amateur career, different than most. You come onto the scene on the pro ranks as a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old in 2009. Tell me a little bit about your amateur career. Growing up in California, you would have been racing guys. I guess you're a couple of years younger than like Josh Grant and stuff like that, but that sort of would have been the sort of murderer's row of like guys you grew up with. Who are some of the guys that you battled with most in Southern California and racing some of those iconic tracks?
Yeah, so my era was I was only short. I think I only did 06, 07, 08 amateur. So I did 3 years of like actual travel amateurs, but I was with Blake Baggett, Dean Wilson, a couple of guys. Those are the only two that I really remember that actually kind of made it to the level of what we did racing to a professional side. So I mean, all three of us were always battling it out. Me and Baggett got into a ton of amateur battles and it was good. I mean, amateurs was good. I never was that well of a rider, and then I got with a trainer early on, Albuquerque, which trained, who was that you said on fly originally, the two that won, Jessamine, not Jessamine.
Jessamine, yeah.
He trained all, yeah. So that's who took me from, because I was never a good rider. I was just hard work. I never had talent. So I trained with him, 2 times a day, just busting my ass. And that's kind of part of where my career as an amateur started getting better, because I had discipline. I had a good trainer under me that, was working my ass off and put me to that level that stepped me into that realm. But yeah, amateurs was good, man. I had a solid 3 years. I won some titles and Loretta's and, Ponca and Florida, all those races, so, but it was short lived though. I mean, amateur career for me wasn't good because I didn't have a ride. I had support from Yamaha my last 2 years, but I wasn't getting paid. I was still buying bikes at a discount. So it was just tough to keep racing and spend another $80,000 a year, or my dad, let's say, spend $80,000 a year to take me to an amateur race that I'm still not gonna get signed on a 250F going into the pro racing. So amateurs for me was good, but it didn't help me in no means to get a ride for the professional career, which was unfortunate. But it was one of those things where we just had to work for it.
Yeah, but at the same time, you must have also loved the process, like as much as it's hard work and it's like those races are a lot of sacrifice. You did well, and you performed at a really high level against some really good competition in throughout a time when like amateur racing was essentially at its peak, right before the sort of the economic downturn. Like there was so much attention, whether it was Playground Magazine, The Pickle, Verb Moto. Like the amateur scene was extremely vibrant at the time, and you actually kind of got out of that at the perfect time of things sort of like not becoming as well supported in that sort of way. Like growing up, like I can't imagine Weston Peick on an 80. Like you must have had a beard, like broad shoulders, looking like an NFL linebacker. Like how young did you get off of those bikes?
I came all the way up. So I rode, like, I think I was riding at 2 or 3 years old. So I raced locally because my dad raced, as I think he was a Team Green Rider.
Louis.
Louis was Team Green Rider and then got fired, I think.
Nice.
But so yeah, so I'd raced, but yeah, I was always like, I rode 80s for quite some time, and then from there I always hopped on. My dad had a 125 and a 252 stroke, so like I was riding a 125 at probably, for my whole life never revolved around, never expected to be a racer by no means. I never, if you take me back to that time, I would sorry, we got housekeeping showing up. I would never think a day in my life that I'd be racing motorcycles. Like just with that, how I grew up and how I was raised and what I was doing before I raced, and then to all of a sudden look forward to be where I was at. I was like, is this real? Is this realistic? You know what I mean? But it was for me, it was a lot of work. And I was always like, from that amateur career to moving on, like I was always like terrified because my dad spent so much money to get me to the point of, even before I was even successful, was like I was always scared he's gonna fuck kick my ass because like we spent all this money, I spent all his money, and then I just fucking quit, So it was like I always had that mentality of like, you can't give up, you can't quit, because if you do, then you're pretty much ruining whatever the hell. I don't really, it was just that mentality in me. So that's what built that killer be killed mentality in my life, was like I don't have a choice. So I always race like I don't have a fucking choice. Like, so that's what I think helped me, and that's it was, because I knew if I sucked, I took it to heart. Like I was like going to be letting my parents down because they spent all this damn money, and then I just decided that I'm just going to suck, which I didn't have that position in life. Which that's why a lot of privateers these days, I would just laugh because people try to give them credit. I'm like, these fucking pussies sit out here and do 2 laps on a Supercross track, or they don't put in the work, or they don't bust their ass, and they want to cry like, oh, poor me, I don't get this help. It's like, bitch, you're sitting at the track, which I've seen numerous times, they're literally sitting on their tailgate bullshitting, and they go out there and do Josh Hansen fucking laps around the track, and they don't even put in the work. So like
Those two
that was
laps
the
do
difference
end
for
up on
me.
Instagram though.
They do, which nothing against Hansen. That dude fucking would smoke me in 2 laps by fucking far. But it's just that I'm just relating to like the difference between me and what, and people wonder why, oh, how did he make it? It's because if if I think back, I never once showed up to the track to just hang out and bullshit. I showed up and I fucking put in work. Like whether I was good or bad, I still rode my dirt bike every single time I was at the track. Where 99% of the other privateers that I rode with, they'd fuck off all day. Like, they wouldn't even, like, I can name so many of them to this day that are still racing. I'm just like, yep, you guys are in the exact same speed, you're in the exact same position. But that's me. I call people out because people just bullshit and cry and complain that they don't have this and they don't have that, or I don't have a choice. I'm like, well, your fucking program sucks because you don't put in the work. But
Absolutely, and we're not just gonna blow Josh Greco out here, but I'm just kidding. But I
there's
love
a
Josh, and there's many others, and I think Josh is pretty realistic about his career. But from you, I saw a lot of stubbornness. That like, even though the raw talent and the just natural ability might not be there, I think there's just a lot of determination and, like I said, stubbornness. Me like, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna like force myself through this pinhole that is like, if you go onto the other side, you can be a factory superstar, and that's exactly what you did. And like the road to it was like you paved your own damn road for it every single step of the way. Talk to us a little bit about those first couple of years from transitioning from the amateur days to racing pro. And yeah, it might have been your backyard as far as like your favorite track or the track you grew up racing, but a ninth place at Glen Helen for your first national in the 450 class to springboard a career where a guy never raced a 250F, period. For all the guys who bag on everybody for not moving up to the 450 class, you moved up there immediately and show some results right off the hop, man. Ninth place at Glen Helen, and then backed it up 2 weeks later at Freestone. Not too shabby.
Yeah, dude, that was that was interesting because that was in that time period where obviously the economy was taking a shit in 0809, and my dad didn't have the money to do another year of amateur, so I didn't even race amateur pro. I raced intermediate, and that was my last amateur race, was Loretta's in 08. So we actually ended up selling the Yamahas we had, and we went and bought 2 brand new Honda 450s. So that's all I had going into that 2009 outdoor season. I obviously skipped Supercross because I wasn't ready for that. But I started off with that at privateer, Wonder Warthog at that time, and I didn't have. I mean, I had expectations because I always made goals for myself. So like, I knew what I could do at Glen Helen, and I knew I could top 10 or get pretty damn close to it, and I did that. It was hard as shit, but just that whole first year was wild for me because I started off as a privateer. I had all my own stuff. No one helped me. I had small help, but it's not like I was getting checks written to me, or I was getting parts and this and that. But then what happened in 09 was I stepped into a situation where I was told if I can do this good of a position, top 10, then I can then they'll sign me for Moto Concepts. So then I actually signed on with Moto Concepts after I top 10 at Glen Helen. So they held the word on that, and then kind of just scanned through that whole year. That was like their second year of a team. So they were still trying to figure it out. They didn't have the best bikes. So I had a ton of DNS just because, based off bikes breaking, engines blowing up, fucking wheels, tires, this, that. So there's so much crap that kind of like dampened the beginning of my career, because like I had the speed, but I didn't have a good enough bike to get me to that next level. So getting on that support team was cool, but it fucked me in the long run because I had so many bike issues that it looked like, oh, Weston sucks, DNF, DNF, DNF. Because when people look at the results, they're not like, oh, his bike blew up. No, it just says you fucking sucked. And so that kind of messed me up. And then I had to like and then I was promised a ride for 2010 from Mike Genova, and then that didn't happen. So then that put some sour taste in my mouth with him. But then I ended up getting a deal with Mike Duclos to have the opportunity to make an actual satellite team with Yamaha. So Rock River, Mike Duclos, he bought a semi. It was delivered to my house by a driver. Me and my dad fucking gutted it. We put the sponsors together. We did almost everything, like everything I'm talking. And that went on for the first year, and then a couple of people came out of the team as managers, this and that, and then that whole thing kind of disputed into a crazy mess, and I ended up quitting that, and then ended up back on the fucking program with Privateer again. So then I went Privateer support team, built my own team with Rock River, and then back to Privateers, bought Cowies. I had people that bought me 2 Cowies. I didn't even buy the Cowies. I ended up finding some cool people that helped me out and supported the program. So I had my buddy Bill Timmy and Mike losing my mind, Mike Melagio. They ended up both finding people and they bought me bikes. So I had 2 Cowies, and I went racing with 2 Cowies under Ted Parks now. So fast forward to yeah, so that was when Wonder Warthog went out, and then Ted Parks came in and took over that whole support thing for riders like me, that didn't have money to get there, so he helped out with that. So I was on that, man, and I was just kind of just here and there, had some good races, had some crappy races, but at the same time I'm building, you know what I mean? I'm still busting my ass, and I'm getting better, making strides, but then I'd fall back because it's like I don't have money to get this good a product. I don't have money to do it the right way. So there's just a lot of crazy shit in that first couple years of my professional career, where it's like I knew I had the speed, I didn't have the speed, but I didn't have the bikes, I didn't have the support, because there's so much that went into that, of like when you're racing and you have to do your own fucking top ends on a Friday night before the race, and you're building bikes yourself, you're framing the bikes with me and my dad framing the bikes, then mechanics, there's so much shit going on, that a lot of people don't know that went into my career, and then wonder why I'm so sour sometimes of like how people treated me, knowing that I was good, but had to fucking continue to struggle for so many years. So it was, yeah, like I said, my whole first 3 or 4 years was chaos of being a privateer.
For certain. And like, just from the outside looking in, from their perspective, obviously, like, you were a young guy, you're thick, you're like you said off air, we're like, you're probably about 230 pounds, maybe 250 on with gear on, compared to a bunch of 150-pound children coming into the sport. That puts you behind the 8 ball, as well as basically like a completely like non-existent 250 career, where a lot of 450 teams sort of like base all of their scouting report on how did you do in the 250s. Well, you didn't do the 250s, so that kind of eliminates that altogether. So I think there's a lot of people who just sort of made their mind up about Weston Peick, and like 450 privateer is a very precarious situation, because there's so much that goes into a program. There's so much needed to be sort of on point to put things together, especially when you're competing against the top teams in the world, whether it's Star Racing, Yamaha, Factory Honda, Factory Cowie, all of that stuff. And like, as a privateer, you're so often working with companies that, like, the biggest companies won't even touch you. So you're dealing with companies that, like, they say, hey, yeah, we can get you 3 sets of wheels, and they actually can get you 0 sets of wheels. And or like, hey, we can pay you X number of dollars, and actually they can pay you none of those dollars. And like, they'll string you along for 3 or 4 months while you use their product and promote them at the races, only to never actually pay you. And that continuously puts guys behind the 8 ball. And it's so tough to even just sort of get out of that, or even align yourself with people who are going to do what they say they're going to do. I feel like you were like almost kind of in that little sort of spin cycle for at least 2 or 3 years there. And honestly, it's amazing you were able to get out of it at all, because there's a lot of guys who don't.
No, they just keep staying in that same Wheel of Fortune fucking genre. But yeah, it's the same thing like you're saying. It's like you're promised things, but you can't hold them accountable because you don't have anything to hold them accountable with. You know what I mean? Like, they could tell you the world, and then sending you stuff here and there, you use it, and then at the end of the day, you're still screwed, or you're not getting what you were told you were going to get. And it is tough because, I mean, dude, I did it, like I said, for 3 or 4 years until 2014. Or let's just say like 2013 was when I think I actually started making strides. Like that was my year that put me into 14.
Yeah.
I had gotten, I think, a couple top fives that year in outdoors. I was top 10 in Supercross a handful of times.
Twice.
So like
Yeah.
I was
A ninth and a 10th, or ninth and a seventh.
Yeah, which wasn't great, but it was better than anybody else at that time with what I had to work with. I just had so much crazy shit. The Utah National, and my fucking bikes wouldn't start. So I had the only way my bikes would start, I had to jump start my bike. So as soon as the gate would get ready to get ready, I literally we'd be off the gate, bump starting my bike to get it to start. And that was like, I think I ended up finishing 4th overall or 5th overall that weekend in Utah.
Yes, 4th overall.
Yeah. So that kind of, all those little things, kept, catching people's eyes. But then I went into 14 with no damn rides. So I ended up getting help from Motorsport Hillsboro and then Motorsport Outlet and Fly Racing. I leased a show hauler from Drew Yenrick that used to race. His dad had a show hauler. So then me and my dad, we put together a team for a 1-person team. Me, a full-time mechanic, driver, and a suspension guy, Dave. And we went at it, dude. Like, we're like, fuck it, this is all we have. Like, I had a full setup, everything good. That was like my breakout year of Supercross. I think I was a hell of a lot way more consistent than 13, just because I had money at that point now, after not having anything and just kind of grinding and not being able to focus on which was just riding. I had to do a lot of other things. So in 14, I had more of a platform of just bikes, product, money to be able to do what I needed to do. So then that's what boosted me being able to step into the RCH situation. But even at that, like, I got lucky. Like, I think Josh Hill and Tickle both got hurt, and it was me and Tedesco that were racing. Tedesco was a test rider. He didn't even want to race outdoors. Yeah. And then they hired me. But if, like, I think of it like, if those 2 guys didn't get hurt, then I would have never had that opportunity to like that, with RCH giving me that opportunity to get that fill-in run. It's like, you never know. I don't know if it wasn't for that, would I have ever signed for JGR in that situation. But yeah, it was cool though. I mean, they gave me an awesome opportunity to fill in for that. I made some money that year, and then I signed that deal in, like, I think Rutherford, New Jersey, on RCH, going into 14 outdoors. And then I was starting to talk to JGR during outdoors while I was racing for RCH. And then I signed my JGR contract in Unadilla that same year in 2014 for JGR 15. So just tons of crazy shit within months. So it's crazy how, just those things happen if you put your mind to it and make shit happen.
Yeah, like, honestly, like to touch on that 14's outdoor season before you got the JGR ride, 9.6, a 40th in Redbud, but I assume that was either a broken bike or a crash. 5th, 8th, 6th, 7th, and 11th and 9th in the nationals. You race all of them. First time racing all the nationals. All but 2 of them were top 10 finishes. And that year in Supercross, you only missed 2 main events, which I assume one of them was Daytona, because that's the iconic kick the bike off the stand. Like, before we can't get to the rest of your career without talking about that particular moment in your career. You and Bobby Canary, last lap, Daytona. did you get it or did he get it? Like, is I something about that story reminds me that like you actually they ended up giving did they give it to you or they give it to Bobby K?
No, they ended up giving it to me because
Yeah,
that was weird shit. Because I don't remember how they said it because the transponder reader was always in a different spot,
yeah.
like on
You're
on the
supposed to be at the bottom of the jump, but
yeah, on the bottom or what. So I don't know if I was at the bottom first or vice versa, but I feel like at the end of the day, like if I was to go back, like he fucking got that. Like he got
yeah.
that race, not me. But I was livid because I'm like me and Canary, it was like me, Canary, and Thomas always fucking going at it in the LCQ. Like always going at it. And I think who won that? You have the stats. Was that JT that won it? No, JT wouldn't have won the LCQ at Daytona. No.
No, I think I don't know how he that was actually a bad year for JT. Wait,
I think it was
14. I don't
last,
think JT wasn't racing in 14.
no, that was 13 was when I kicked the bike off.
Oh,
I thought that
okay.
was JT's last year.
I think his last year was 12, honestly. I think he had a horrible year in 12 and hated it. I'll double check though. Yeah, Daytona 13th. Yeah, he's not in the main event at
Yeah.
all. So his last year was 12. That's the year he got in front of Dungey at Hangtown and Dungey got mad at him.
Okay. But yeah, so uh that whole LCQ thing was kind of like it should have went to Canary because I think personally like he was ahead of me. Like it was pretty damn close. I mean, yeah, I jumped off further, so maybe the timing thing was up the top. Who knows? But yeah, so that whole thing, like that's how much passion I had for racing. Because like literally, I was in the garage in Daytona rebuilding my bike till probably fuck it 9, 10 o'clock at night on Friday night before that race. Because I had a mechanic at the time, but he was a fucking dumbass, and so there was just so many issues back and forth. Had issues during the day, all that crap. So it's just that's why I was just so pissed because I'm like, God damn it, that's how I make my money. You know what I mean? And then if you're so close and then you miss it, you're just. I was always just like I took it to heart because like that wasn't nobody else's money. That was my money that I paid all my shit. Nobody paid my bills. So it's like when people talk crap and run their mouth like, oh, you're such a sore loser. Fuck you. Like you've never like people that talk shit have never been in any type of boots that I've been in. Like, but they just run their mouths because that's all they can. They sit behind their computers like this and talk shit or their phone, where it's like, say it to my face and I'll fucking headbutt you. Like, but that's just like how people are. But that's why I took that so personally because I worked my ass off to get to that position, and then that happens, and I'm just so pissed. So I'm like, fuck it. It's just the heat of the moment. I end up making it in to the main event that night. So, and then they happen to have it on live TV pointing right at me from fucking 10 miles away, straight into the garages. And then they see the whole thing. So, I mean, but yeah, it's awesome at the end of the day to think like, yeah, those are all those little things that help my career and my name grow as doing stupid shit like that.
Yeah, like obviously there's a couple of ways you can look at it. Like, oh yeah, like hey, sore loser, you didn't win, so you you kicked your bike. Some people can look at that as like it's a negative thing. I saw it as like, yeah, this kid cares. Like, this kid gives a shit, and he's pissed to not make it into the main because you as well as I know, there's more than a few privateers out there that are just happy to make it into the night show, and they don't try. Like literally you see them on the heat race, they're like halfway down the straightaway and the start straight, and they're like basically just like standing up going through the first corner. Like they made their night show money and they're gonna roll around in the LCQ too. You gave a shit, and I think that the rawness and like yeah, like for every other kid like myself who could only dream to get into a main event, yeah, damn rights you're going to be pissed that you're not in there, because that was like if you hadn't made it into that main event, that'd be one more main that you wouldn't be able to say go back to some sponsors in the offseason and say, hey, I made into this main event, many main events, plus the money that you would have made going into the main event. Obviously you make more making the main than not making it, but Yeah, I don't think anyone can fault you for getting upset about that. And yeah, I think you probably earned yourself more fans than you lost on that particular day. And yeah, if no one else was impressed, I think a guy like maybe like Coy Gibbs, who ended up signing you to a contract in the 2015 season to race Yamaha. Obviously, it was probably Jeremy Albrecht, who ended up, like, I guess, making that bridging that relationship. But yeah, like, tell me a little bit about going to JGR, meeting Jeremy, meeting Coy, and kind of getting pulled into the fray, because I think you were their kind of guy.
Yeah, definitely. That whole thing came about, like, obviously they'd seen what I was doing, and I know, like, my dad was in their ear, and then Buddy Antunez, which was who was my trainer in, he was professional. I think he started, like, well, he was training Eli Tomac, and I would hop in back all the way back to like 2011, 2010. So I think Buddy was in Jeremy Albrecht's ear, like, hey, you need to hire Weston, you need to hire Weston, because they were friends, they grew up together racing and mechanic and whatever. But
Right.
so the whole thing generated from Antunez in their ears. My dad's talking to them, then they're watching. But yeah, dude, that whole thing was awesome. I mean, that was like, once I knew once I signed with JGR, I knew that that was going to be the highlight of my career, because at that point I knew they could do whatever they wanted with bikes. They could build me whatever I wanted, and they had factory bikes, and it was better than anything I ever had. So I knew that at that point in my career, now I don't have to worry about building my bike, figuring out how I'm gonna get to the races, figure out this, figure out that. I got to figure out what kind of money it's going to cost me to do this. Like, I knew that I had all pressure off me, other than the only pressure I had was just to train and ride my motorcycle. So that allowed me to, yet moving off of 14 season off season, I literally, my whole off season was dedicated to training my ass off at cutting weight. I went from like 225, 230 to 190 pounds, 195 pounds. So my whole off season was literally, I was on the bicycle for 15, 20 hours a week cutting weight. So that's what I knew I had to do to be able to keep a factory ride, because I had time now. So now I had that time to dedicate and bust my ass. So that made a huge difference in my career as well, was having a ride, now having all this time to actually critique and perfect my riding and my body and this and that. And so that's what was awesome, obviously getting factory ride now is having the options to kind of dedicate and focus on what you need to be done to succeed in that situation. So that was awesome with JGR, and all those people are badass. Like Coy was kind of just like me, like rough around the edges, like just had money, had a team, and just wanted to have good results. And he gave me that opportunity. And when people give me opportunities, dude, I fucking run with it, dude. I'm not gonna dick off. And I think they wanted change too, because they had a lot of riders that had talent, but they didn't have the drive, and they were tired of like the same old bullshit. I'm not gonna say names, but they're fucking quitters. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have what it took to like give that end game result. They started off good, and then they'd have excuses. They would try, and they get hurt and this and that. And I think they gave me an opportunity because they wanted something different.
Certainly. I think you certainly fit the mold of what they were looking for. And like, you just hit the nail on the head, man. I think the biggest advantage going from a factory program or a privateer program to a factory program is the time. Like, when you guys can just focus on fitness and going fast on two wheels, that is the hugest linchpin to just being able to unlock all of the potential needed to go as fast as those guys go. When you have to worry about working on the bike, cleaning the bike, talking to sponsors, saying, hey, are you going to send me that money? And they're like, oh, what money? Like, all that stuff throughout being a privateer, that, like, that stuff, it's all just distractions and time taken away from just going out there and working hard. And then honestly, I couldn't think of a better guy to be working with as a trainer and riding coach than Buddy Antunez. I think he was honestly maybe like maybe one of the biggest sort of he was a cheerleader for you. He like beat that drum to say that this guy is someone who has potential. And honestly, from a like I've been to a Buddy Antonis riding school. He took some seconds off of my lap times, which there's a lot of seconds to take off those lap times. But he's a great guy to work with. And it was amazing to see you literally turn yourself from a guy who was, yeah, main event guy all the time, some 15th, some 14th, to like after you'd started working with Buddy, outside of a couple of weird finishes, you were 7, 8, 9, 10. Like you're a top 10 guy almost every single weekend. And yeah, working with him seemed to really kind of like that was just what you needed.
No, it was like Buddy like was probably the best thing that happened for me, like as far as being a trainer. Like he stepped in and like we jived. Like I said, I learned a few things by riding with Tomac when he was training him. But like at the end of the day, like if I never had Buddy as a trainer, I would have never made it this far in my career. Because like he took me from rough around the edges, rough around the edges as a rider to like who I was and how I rode. And that's what built a couple of the trainers at that time, but none of them had the patience and knowledge that he had. So like I said, I mean, is you know, as soon as I started seeing results with Buddy, it was like, fuck it. This is what I needed. And we just kept busting our asses. And I mean, and it showed because I mean, we'd be he was like obsolete for me for a long time. Like it was just me and him. Like I paid him well, and that was all it was. It was me and Buddy every day busting our ass. And it shows. And I give a lot of it to him, you know, as far as me building that speed and getting those results is because of him. And obviously there's a lot more to it than just that. But as far as like I'm only as good as I am with what I have in front of me, you know, and he allowed me to have those options. So
Yeah, it turned itself into a lot of top 5 finishes and even 2 podiums. Like, tell me a little bit about Santa Clara 2015 aboard a Yamaha. That like you're standing on the podium alongside who? Let's see who you were on the podium with. Eli Tomac and Ryan Dungey. Oh, just Ryan Dungey and Eli Tomac, no big deal. Beating guys like Jason Anderson, Cole Seeley, Blake Baggett, Justin Brayton, and this guy from Curry, Australia named Chad Reed. I think I'd throw my shoulder out, patting myself on the back for that. Tell me a little bit about that race and just how much that meant to you to take home that 3rd place.
yeah, so I'll back it up. So actually, yeah, it's I mean that will I don't know how deep you want to start from the beginning of 15, like
Yeah.
say let's just do that. I'll just cap 15. So
Okay.
15, I was like, and the thing too about Buddy was like he always taught me. He's like screw everybody else on the track. He's like, don't even fucking worry about anybody. Race them like hay balls. Race on the track like, to my head of like F these people, don't worry about these people. Like, who cares if it's James Stewart or Ricky Carmichael or Villapoto when they get around factory riders? Like, if you're on that level, like you're not as fast as them, and if they're behind you, they'll just move over and let them go. Like, so I never had that mentality. I was like, if you're behind me, like I'm gonna fucking race you, just like I'm gonna race anybody else. Like, get by me. And then I built that realm of like it was funny. So like these riders would try to pass me if they were scared to pass me because they knew I wasn't going to give it up. And they know if they came underneath the inside of me and try to take me out, I was just going to lean right into them fucking, and they're going down because I'm not moving. So like that whole part of me and Buddy obviously was rad. And then stepping into that 15 season, just, I was on pure, like, just, I busted my ass in that off season. Like I was fast. Me and Barcia were training together. Back in North Carolina at our track in North Carolina, then here and there. So like I was pacing myself off Barcia. Like Barcia was the number 1 guy. I was number 2. So like I see it like so that gave me more drive. That was probably a mistake on them because like Barcia was number 1 guy. They paying him millions of dollars. They're paying me not nowhere near close to that. So like with with that drive of like me not getting 100% focused, and he was always the focus, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to show you guys what's up. Like, so we stepped into the rounds. Anaheim one went decent. Then
Seventh.
Phoenix. Yeah, because I think me and Marsha fucking stood me high or something like that. We're going back and forth. But then, going into Phoenix, man, I was like, all right, I'm done. I was getting good starts, and like I was just driving that night and shit was going good, and I got off to a really good start. Was all over Dungy, past Dungy. Pumped him out actually. That was a solid pass. No, he's a good dude. But yeah, so that kind of that night for me was like my turning point. Like everything was clicking. The bike was awesome. I was running third place for fucking 2 laps to go or something like that. And then I I stepped off to a table, and when I landed, my foot was off the peg a little bit too far, and I rolled my foot off the edge of the peg, and I snapped my tendon, ripped the bone off my outer part of my foot. So then I had, obviously, my bones fucking broken on my foot. So I ended up, Dungy had to pass me, or that would have been my first podium of my career. But then just that whole thing is what set. But then I got hurt. So then after that, I had to get surgery. I got my bone wired back on. I tried to race the next weekend after I just had my whole foot cut open and surgery, and it was wired together and blah blah. I show up to Anaheim too.
Right.
Fucking try to do practice. It rained a bunch. It was muddy. I hit the finish line. As soon as I landed on the finish line, the pressure of obviously that it snapped the bone off again with the wiring and everything in there. So then I went and I flew with coach private back to North Carolina and saw one of their doctors, and they fixed it again. So then I was off for, I think,
a month.
few weeks.
You didn't come back to till Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2015, Arlington, 22nd.
Yep, yeah, that's right. So that year was like my best year, but my shittiest year, because like I had that speed, I came back good, and then I freaking crashed in. I want to say it had to have been Arlington. I crashed in the heaters or something. I tore my MCL.
Oh, MCLs are tough, especially if you have to pinch the bike with no MCL or even a torn MCL. Ugh.
So I tore my MCL like the first or second race back. Then I still raced. I just had my trainer Pat at the time, not my moto trainer, my off the bike, like not even trainer. He was my acupressure guy, so he traveled with me, like just like Navarro and all those guys. But he ended up having to just tape my knee every single weekend to get through the whole season. So yeah, so that was crazy. This happened, that happened. I went to I'm trying to think, Santa Clara was before New Jersey, right? So I don't know, I had a huge crash.
One sec here. It's it was April 18th, third place right before East Rutherford, or New Jersey. April 18th, for those who know what that's all about.
Yeah, I had a huge crash in the heat race in Rutherford. Then like I had I had a huge crash. The rear fender broke off and fucking shoved into my ass cheek and put a huge hole in my ass cheek in Rutherford like crazy. And then I had my back was wrecked, and then I did that. I got through that night, and then just did rehab all week and shit, stepped it up, and then went to Santa Clara, whatever the hell. And that was my first podium, was that weekend. Same thing, got off to a good start and just kind of rode hard and busted my ass and made that happen. So that was a huge thing for me, because like I never would have thought I would have gotten a podium. You know what I mean? Like with the field and how many people were racing that year, like I still look back and I'm like, oh fuck, I guess I really did that. You know, it's one of those things where from where I started to then, it's like it's just hard to come across to think of that.
Well, yeah, and like for a guy like yourself, like just looking at the results from Vegas that year, you also got a podium ahead of guys like guys that you would have grown up either like you're a couple of years older or younger than like, well, I think you're about the same age as Cole Seeley, Seeley, Grant, Baggett, Barsha. Like those are the guys who ended up behind you in that particular event, and like it's got to feel good after a lot of years of basically playing second, third, or fourth fiddle to those guys, and just putting in those good results. And honestly, yeah, if I'm looking at 2015 was about as up and down of a year as you could possibly have. You go 7, 4, 22, you're hurt for that month, 22, 5, 10, 8, 4, 22, 5, 22, 3, 10, 3. Like, that is a roller coaster, Weston.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was my best but worst year of results and everything else. But it's, at least I showed speed. You know what I mean? That was like, it was like that category of like figuring out that you can go this fast, but can you maintain it? You know what I mean? Because I was never that fast, and I built so much speed from 14 to 15 that it like took time to figure out how do I maintain this? Like, how do I stay in this position for this long and, you know, stay consistent on the bike and not crash or make a mistake. And so that was kind of, yeah, it was a learning curve year for me. And then 2016 sucked. I kind of was on off, had a bad off season, and just kind of just caught up from there. And like I said, 16 was shit to me. It was that whole feud with Friese, and I made it work. I drove through that year.
Yeah, like that. Obviously, that is maybe one of the most endearing and everlasting moments of your career. That particular race, raining down blows on one Vince Friese. I'm sure, like, so many other racers were probably thinking, like, I wish I could have done that at some point. I would assume that you have no regrets about how that night went.
No, I would do it again. I don't. That's how I am. Like, it was. I've had feud with him. Me and him go back to, because we were on Moto Concepts in 09, but he was 250 class, so I never had issues with him. I just always knew he was a dirty ass rider and fucking snake your front end out or cross W or whatever from the get go. And so my first encounter with him, practice, let alone distance practice, he cuts off the track and cleans me out before the whip section at Washougal National. And that's when I first got up then and got into it. Then I don't know if I hit him. I might have hit him or shoved him, whatever the hell, and the flaggers broke it up. So that was my first feud with Vince. And then kind of we've had our things here and there, back and forth, going at it at races. Like, I was always faster than him, but it was just like that thing where it's like he always got good starts and you always have to pass this dickhead. So then you always had to like game plan, like, all right, I need to pass him in this part of the track because he can't catch me to clean me out in the next turn. So that was like racing Vince, was like figuring out when to pass him to get a little bit of a gap on him so where he can't come back and clean you out in the next turn. And then obviously, yeah, that weekend in Anaheim, it was just kind of like I said, I wasn't on my game. I kind of had a shitty off season, and he just pissed me off, cleaned me out in the heat race or something like that. Didn't clean me out, but ran me wide, hit the hay bales, crashed, and then straight into the semi or whatever it was then. And I didn't even have to look, just like it was that bad. Like, I didn't even have to look to see who cleaned me out. I knew it was him. Oh, yeah. So that's instantly got up and I was like, fuck this guy. Like, and just started hitting him. And like, yeah, it was good. I mean, I got a ton of publicity on it. I lost money, made money. I don't really care. I'll do it again. You know, that's life.
Absolutely. I think if you guys ever raced arena cross together, they do that 1v1 thing where they like pit two racers against each other. I think that would maybe break the internet on how many votes. My favorite part about that the whole time, like, yeah, the punches were hilarious, but then when like he's like getting back up and you're like standing and you literally just put like just like middle finger straight to his face. Like, that was like, as a hockey player, I think that was about as hot as close as motocross ever got to hockey, and I have a lot of respect for that. So good on you, man.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Fair enough. Well, he's currently suspended indefinitely from the team or something along those lines. He's also hurt, but yeah, I don't know what the future holds for that young man, but 2017, 2018 were a lot better years for you. Like, you sort of picked up the pieces after a lackluster 16 and you were back to being like inside the top 10 more often than not, lots of top fives. One thing I noticed, and like you actually righted the ship the last year that you raced at Millville, is you only had one top 10 finish at Millville. What do you have against that place? Because I love it.
I fucking hate it. I hate Melville. I have never done good there. I've had a couple good rides there, but that place just always seemed to fucking kick my ass. I don't know what it was about that. I've been landed on by Brock there, crossroaded. He landed on me. Crashed. I think every single time I raced the ride. So that was like one that I just despise going to. And yeah, I don't know, but yeah, the whole well, yeah, 2017. I got in Phoenix Supercross, and I snapped my wrist and dislocated it. So I missed
Okay.
that whole season of Supercross 17, and then I came back in outdoors and raced the full outdoor series because that was my contract year. I didn't have a contract for 18, and a lot of other people didn't either. So I was like, fuck, so I rushed my injury, and I'm talking, I dislocated my wrist, tore my perilunate, broke some other stuff. So I had 4 pins and some fucked up shit in my wrist, and I rehabbed the hell out of it. Came back way too soon because my wrist wasn't ready, but I had to because, like I said, I didn't have a choice. Because if I didn't race outdoors, I wouldn't have been signed for 2018 with JGR because there was Bogle out, there's Bogle up, and there was like 3 or 4 other guys up that were like chomping at JGR, like, oh, I'll fucking ride for this, I'll ride for free. And I'm like, you fucking weasels, dude, like trying to like jump in and get a ride because they suck and they can't get a ride anymore. They can't get paid, so they're willing to ride for free. So that kind of was like, fuck, okay, well, I gotta race. I don't have a choice. So I raced. I did decent outdoors. I couldn't even barely twist the throttle because my wrist was so destroyed. So I mean, it was like I'd wrist brace, tape brace, this, that, but I made it work. And then I had a good off season, and then came back out swinging for 2018, and that was kind of. I think 2018 was my most consistent. I didn't have the best. I didn't have results like 15, but I had way more consistent. I think I almost raced every single Supercross race consecutively, had top tens, I believe, and no podiums. I think I don't even know, a couple of fourths or whatever the hell. But yeah, 18 was good, and I was back on my stride. Like I felt like I was in shape. I felt like I was in 2015. But obviously, just you got your ups and downs, but it was overall a solid year, and I was looking forward to going into 2019, and obviously got injured, and that was it. So.
For sure. And yeah, 2018, you started off with 3 top 5 finishes, a lot of great finishes throughout that year. And as I was already covering the sport at the time, I'd interview you after a lot of races. And it was sort of like the narrative there was like Weston Peick is back and a player in this, and sort of disturbing the piece in the top 10 again. Because like you're very much unlike a lot of the guys you raced against. Physically, just your approach to things, you're a lot more hard-nosed than I'd say anybody who races inside the top 10. You've got a lot more snarl to the way you approach racing, and I think that's a little bit abrasive to even like the most, even the toughest guys out there, or some of the most aggressive riders. Like I think you'd still sort of label either a Jason Anderson or Justin Barsha in the top 10 right now as being the most aggressive of those guys. And I don't think those guys would fuck around with you at all back then. So you're definitely kind of like cut from a different cloth. Talk about that a little bit, about just sort of being like sort of like I would say like you were, I wouldn't say a disturbance, or like you sort of like you upset the apple cart of like like you were a guy in the top 10 that was kind of like one of these things is not like the other. Like tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think people always looked at me, especially riders, like, how's this big ass motherfucker racing and beating us? And I could tell they'd get frustrated and they'd get upset, like, especially like what I was with on the team with, but it's like put in the work, dude. It's like I'm just like everybody else, but people looked at me differently. Like they looked at me like I shouldn't be in that position and doing that good because maybe the way I came up or just maybe the size of me or this and that. But I mean, that was just what I always had to deal with. And that's just what was the regular, and I was used to it. And that was my advantage because then people were scared of me. Like as soon as I made that footstep down of like fuck around and we're not gonna play this game, like it would almost worked in my mentality in my favor because people would see me behind them and they wouldn't try as hard. They'd be like, oh fuck, I don't want to deal with this. Or if they were behind me, they wouldn't try me because they knew it wasn't going to end up well. There's a couple that tried me. Barsha always tried me. Me and Anderson got into Barsha, but not a lot of guys actually step up to the plate. And like I said, there was a fair share of them. So.
Yeah, like, I think you would have probably rearranged one of those guys, and then that would be that. Last couple of things I have for you here on the BigMx Radio podcast, and I think we're gonna have to do a part 2 at some point, just because you got way more stories than we've even done. We've like scratched the surface a little bit, so you're gonna have to be a repeat offender. I don't think you'd mind that whatsoever, but let's talk a little bit about Travis Souls, a guy who was at your side when you had your injury. He was a mechanic for you. He's probably still a good friend to this day, and a guy who I think, honestly, he's one of the good guys of the sport. He's a guy of character, and just an all around good dude. Let's talk a little bit about Travis.
Yeah, so Travis came in to my 18 year because I seem to have a ton of mechanics. I think I had 3 or 4 mechanics on JGR. But yeah, Travis was awesome, man. Me and him drived. I didn't know about him at first, and then everything kind of clicked. We got along well. Super awesome person, and we just built a really good relationship. And then we had a great years. I mean, he's fucking awesome mechanic. I can't say nothing bad about him. And then, but I mean, he's just an awesome dude. He's been there since day one, or since that whole time last minute. But just kind of awesome, stayed there with, me and my dad and him, and kind of just, he was there through everything. And then, fast forward to now, we're still awesome friends. We hang out all the time whenever he's around. And, now he's been bouncing around with a couple different teams and stuff, but he's a good dude. I really enjoyed having him as a mechanic, and always bust his ass. You didn't have to worry about nothing because you knew that when you were getting on that bike, there was nothing that was going to break or fall apart.
Absolutely. And I think the two of you guys, like a little bit of self-defecating, maybe give each other a lot of shit and laugh. Like I kind of see you as somebody who, if I'm not making fun of you, it's because I don't like you. You know what I mean? If like I need to be able to like chop it up and like throw out some insults and stuff like that. That's what kind of guys do. And like Travis is totally that guy. And I think that you fit that mold too.
Oh yeah, me and we talk shit all day, and we still talk shit. Like that's how it was. That's what made us work good together, is because it was just, we're always just bullshitting, and we didn't keep anything from each other. If he seen something else fucking up on, he'd call me out. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, he's not like a lot of other mechanics where they're just pushovers. You know what I mean? They're just like, they'll just take it because they know their place. Where he'd be like, nah, shut up, like you fucking suck today, or you're like slow, or this or that. So like we kept it real, which was good for people. So
Absolutely. There's enough people in the world and the industry who kiss each other's ass. So yeah, you don't need any of that in your program. And last thing I have for you, man, is when you look back on your career, how would you want to be remembered by fans, and how do you remember yourself? How do you remember the professional athlete that was Weston Peick? Like, you're still that guy. But unfortunately had an injury that ended what was a pretty fantastic career. But what would you hope that people sort of like look back and remember?
I don't know, man. Just kind of as that like hardcore rider that came up for nothing, and just proved that hard work pays off, and just gives that mentality to people that you don't need things handed to you, that you could just, you could prove that busting your ass gets you in better places and further than most people think that I would. And that I take no shit, dude. I don't know. I mean, that's a hard question to answer. Like, I don't. I mean, people remember me for who I was, like, because I took. Yeah, I don't know. I just roll with it, dude. I'm like, fuck it. You love me or you hate me.
Fair enough. Well, I think maybe that's the key to success in a lot of things. Because honestly, like on top of being an unreal racer, you've always also had the ability to always pull hot chicks, Weston. What the hell is up with that? Like I see her walking back and forth every once in a while. You have an absolute smoke show of a girlfriend, and yeah, there she is. Like,
Um,
just what's the secret, man? Like is it just like you just have like the biggest wrench in moto, or like what's the deal?
no, I'm white, bro. I don't have the biggest range. Watch, that's gonna get narrated now. I'm racist, but whatever the fuck, I don't care.
Yeah,
No, I guess I got what is it, Ben? I guess I know how to talk to him or whatever. I don't know. Fuck. I
fair
just make
enough.
it work. That's all that matters. Okay.
Yeah, all right. He made it work on the track, makes it work off the track. Weston Peick here on the BigMx Radio podcast. Weston, this has been so much fun, man. We need to do this again. You're my kind of guy as far as a racer and someone who I had a ton of respect for as a racer and still to this day. So I really appreciate you making the time to chat with me today.
You know, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, we'll have to. Like I said, I got stories for days, dude. So
Yeah,
fucking whenever I would stay on longer, but I got a dip to go to
I
this
know.
appointment. Yeah, like I said, let me know. I'm more than welcome to come on whenever and spit some bullshit. So
I love it. Well, yeah, like I said, don't hang up just yet. But for podcast sake, we're gonna cut it off right